All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode on the Black Experience. I'm your host, Ermias Hagos here, and I am back with another very exciting episode, y'all. Today's a special one, guys. I have a treat. Today's guest is a husband, he's a mentor, he's a speaker, he is a business owner, he is a board member of numerous nonprofits, he's a teacher, and so much more. Let's put our hands together and let's bring up Mr. Ken Miller. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. And I want to first start off with thanking you. Thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak with you and share a little of my experience, share a little of my past, maybe what I'm doing today, and also some of the things that I have exciting coming up in the future.
Yeah.
So again, thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's an honor because I know we have so many things we're going to cover today. Ken, before we even start, I remember the first day I met you, it was at Brandywine. I was coming up. I had ordered some food, and I just saw you, and I was like, oh, it's a new face. I've never seen him at the brothers meeting. And as soon as I started talking to you, and I was just like, man, he is just so open to talking to me. I mentioned the podcast. You were so open about that idea, about meeting up. That first impression really was like, it meant a lot to me because it was like, wow, when you're meeting someone, you have to be open. You should be open. You should be nice. Have a smile. So I don't know if you ever thought about that, but that first impression meant a lot.
Yes, I thought about it. And the reason I thought about it was very simply is because I'd like to reach out to the young black men. And I'd like to speak with them. I'd like to see where they're coming from, where they're going, what their experience. And remember, one of the first things I said to you, if you like, let's go out and have a bite to eat. Let's go have lunch. And let's sit and talk. Let's break bread, as we would say. And it gives me an opportunity to understand you a little bit more, understand your motivations and where have you been, where do you want to go. More importantly, where do you want to go? Because I can't do much about where you've been. This is if we get to a relationship, which we have as a mentor, a mentee, but I can work and help you to achieve your dream. And we'll talk a little bit more about the mentoring at a later date. But it's been a wonderful experience to this date, and I'm looking forward to a long journey with you.
Absolutely. And shout out to El Agave restaurant. That restaurant, you picked the right one. Best Mexican food in town, in my opinion. So love that food. But yeah, Ken, let's kind of kick it off with a little bit about your background. If you want to talk about what life was like growing up for you, and kind of what that looked like.
You know, it's interesting. You know, we'll talk about the Black experience, but there's a lot of other experience that makes up your identity of who you are. So when I speak, and I'll speak from stage, and I'll share my story at times, I'll share my past. But again, everything that happens for the past is to really indicate who I am today, and also give you an idea of my direction in the future. So very simply, my past. I was born October 15th, 1962. My mother was a white teenage prostitute, and my dad was a black drug dealer and pimp. That's what my parents were. And I was put up for adoption at birth, and I went through foster homes, which had a great influence on how I looked at the world, was foster homes. I did that for 6 years. I was adopted in 1968 by a couple named Irene and Sam Miller. And this was in New York, and I grew up in an area called upstate New York. Then what happened was we moved when I was 12 years old to Anchorage, Alaska. We moved for two reasons. One was for work for my mother, and two was to get away from my father because my father was a very violent alcoholic. So we moved up to Anchorage, and I went to high school in Anchorage and graduated from high school at 17, went to college at age 17 to the Ivy Leagues. I was accepted to Harvard. I was a National Merit Scholar. I went to Dartmouth and went and got my degree from Dartmouth College. And then when I graduated at 21, I always tell people I graduated with a degree in English and history with a minor in alcohol and fraternities. That was probably my minor at Dartmouth. And then I went into the world, and there was a lot more that happened. But the key components, and again, when we talk about identity, I've always identified as an African American, as a black man. When I was in the 70s, we were Negroes. Before that, we were colored. Before that, we were called probably other things. And then I remember when we went to Afro-American, and then I went African American, and a lot of times we use the terms African American or black. My mom's white. My mother was a white teenage girl. And so you could say, and it was very interesting, I was speaking on this, you could say I'm a mulatto. I'm half white, half black. And, when I look at the identity, society just looks at me as being black, and that's what I am. Culturally, I'm black. I love my music, but there's also aspects of the white culture that I've been accustomed to and acclimatized myself to, and was very comfortable in the white world for many, many years. Still am comfortable in that. But I will always identify as an African American male, and with certain other caveats of my existence or my experience that I use as a part of my identity. Predominantly, my identity is I'm just an older black guy that is a child of God, that is blessed to be able to share stories like this and be able to give back to others and impact people in a positive way. I believe I'm doing that. Not only believe, I know I'm doing that. And it's just another opportunity to share my story. And hopefully there'll be something positive from you listening to someone just who is very honest, very transparent, and will be able to share from their heart and also from their intellect as to what their experience is today.
Wow. and that's a wrap on the podcast right there. No, I'm joking.
We just getting warmed up.
Ken, man, you mentioned in there Ivy League. Mm-hmm. Not everyone goes to the Ivy Leagues. Mm-hmm. Where did that intellect come from? Did that come from your parents? Did that come from you just studying?
Great question. So this is interesting. When I was adopted at 6 years old, I could not read. I could not write. I could not tell time. I could not even tie my shoes because I was in all these foster homes. And when you do foster homes, at least in the New York system, state system, you'll go to a foster home for like a month and a half, and then you go to another foster home, and they send you around to all these different foster homes. So I had numerous foster homes. Some were great, some were all right. But one thing I always knew is I didn't have a mother. I knew that since I was like 4 years old. And so I didn't have any of these skills when I'm in first grade at this time, 6 years old. And I remember my mother who adopted me, Irene Miller, she sat me down that first summer with what they call 3x5 index cards with phonetics. Mm. And phonetics are your TH, your mm-hmm. PH, and so you learn how to pronounce. And she taught me how to literally read, and I fell in love with reading.
Wow.
By the time I was in second grade, I was reading at the sixth grade level.
Incredible.
That I know that because we got tested. And again, I was very precocious. I did very well academically. I was a National Merit Scholar. I was an advanced placement. And this is all, again, 17, 16. I went to college, Ivy League. I got accepted to Harvard, but I went to Dartmouth because it was in the country. I did not like cities when I was younger. Still not a big fan of large cities. And so I went off. And so the question is was I born with this intelligence, or was it one of what they call nature versus nurture? And I believe, first of all, I believe that I have intelligence. And this is how I know this. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but when I did the genealogy research, I found out I had two sisters, also mixed, because my father impregnated two other white women, white girls, really. They were all teenagers. And all of my sisters are very intelligent. One's a retired professor, and the other was an English teacher. And here I was an English major. In our community, for that to happen would be very unusual, that we have three college graduates, we're talking 60s now, 70s, mm-hmm. and also at the level that we'll say that we were at, and we are, because my sisters are still alive. So I've been blessed. I believe it was in, but this is a key component of it, and this is some of the difficulty we have in our society today. Yes, you can have this innate intelligence, but if it isn't nurtured, if my mother had not sat me down with those phonetics and those 3x5 index cards when I was 6 years old, and believe me, I cried every day doing this because I wanted to play. I'm 6 years old. I didn't want to sit there and go f, or the, and do phonetics. But look where I am today. And then I fell in love with reading. So it worked out well. So I think it's partial environmental, but partial, I believe I've been blessed with some skill sets and some innate intelligence that is genetic. Because again, my sisters have that same intelligence.
Wow. And a big shout out to your foster mother for doing that. I mean,
that's incredible.
That is incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. I like how you said, you could be gifted with some level of intelligence. It could come easier, right? Like Albert Einstein or something, but you have to foster it. You have to. It reminds me of a basketball player. I don't remember who it was, but he said something to the effect, talent can only go so far. Mm-hmm. If talent fails to work hard, then you can only get so far with that. And so you have to put in the work too. Like, you could be a gifted basketball player, but someone that has maybe less of a talent than you but outworks you across many summers or something can potentially get further than you. Right?
For sure. And a lot of that's going to be the qualities that you have. We talk about a thing called emotional intelligence, and we could go into that quite a bit. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the mentoring and working with young black men, which is one of my passions. Yeah. But there's a key component. So my blessing was, we'll say, intellectual, cognitive ability. But I have no artistic ability, none. And it's very interesting because my mother, this adoptive mother, was extremely capable in the artistic world. She was a dancer on Broadway, danced. She was a choreographer. She put out a record album. She was in 2 movies. And she tried to teach me all of the arts because that was her love and her passion. I did not take to it at all. And I tried them all. I tried acting. I was in Raisin in the Sun, playing the position of Travis, I believe it was the son. When I was 8 years old, I was in numerous plays and musicals. My mom played guitar. I tried to learn to play an instrument. It did not work. My mother was a beautiful singer. I cannot sing my way out of a shower. Okay, so I didn't have that innately, and we tried. So it's not like it wasn't there because I had the nurture part of it, but I did not have the innate born nature aspect of arts. This is what I'd love to say is that whatever your strength is, run with that. It may not be in the intellectual. That doesn't mean you cannot be successful as you define success. But find out, what do I have that is my talent? What is my strengths? Emphasize those and run with those, and then define your success.
Yeah. No, I mean that. Yeah, you put it best out there. I kind of want to talk about motivation and the why, because even before the podcast, this is something that we were talking about. It's not really the how or the what or something, but it's really, what's the why behind it? We were talking about business. What's the why behind your product? Anyone can sell a chocolate bar, right? But people could have different reasons as to why they're selling it. When you wake up in the morning, Ken, what is the why for you? Why do you keep going? Why do you keep going despite, the hard childhood that you grew up with, a biracial family and all that?
That's a great question. And it's one of the most important questions that each and every individual must answer is their why. What is your why? And you could have different whys for different things. So let's say I have a why for my business. I want my business to be $1 million business. So why do I want that? It's a marker of success. It allows me to meet the needs of my family. It allows me to do things that I do in the community financially. Great, no problem. What is your why to mentor young black men? Okay. One of the reasons I want to mentor a young black man, what is my motivation? What is my emotional reason? Because this is not a rational decision to take my capacity of time and money to spend time for free with young men to help them grow and to reach their dreams. But so why do I do it? The reason why I do it is, one, I know what it's like not to have a father figure. I'm not their father. I'm not their dad. But I know what it's like not to have an older black male to say, hey, I'm there with you. I'm making that walk with you. Hey, maybe you might want to do this, or I suggest this. Because my father was an alcoholic. He was a violent alcoholic, and I wanted very, very little to do or interact with him. So I did not have an older black male figure. I'd never had a grandfather or grandparents. When I got adopted, they were already passed. I didn't have older male relatives because we lived in Alaska and everybody else was in other states. So I just didn't have an individual like that. So one is I want to be able to be the individual that can give them information so that they can, again, reach, or what I use the term, engender their dream. And so that's my why. I want to be that person that can assist them in that journey. Why am I a nice person? Because I made a decision 20 years ago to be a kind and gentle man. I made a decision. And again, one of the things I always talk about is the difference between a choice and a decision. I can choose multiple things, but I only decide a specific thing, okay? I didn't choose to be kind and gentle because that choice is always out there. I made a decision, which then defines that there's going to be action behind it. And the action and the choice that I've made, the decision I made is to be a kind and gentle man. And I am. I'm a kind and gentle man. And so I have multiple whys depending on the circumstances, but there's an overwhelming why. And that overwhelming why is that I've made a decision to do God's will. And God's will, as I define it, is the next indicated correct thing to do. The next indicated correct thing to do. That's God's will. And that doesn't mean what is best for me, what brings the most pleasure for me, or the least amount of pain. It's the next indicated correct thing to do. So my why is to do God's will. Me being on this podcast is God's will. I think this is a good, positive thing that I can do a value added to society. There may be 10 people that see this. There may be 100 people. But those people who see it, you will get positive from me, and you will get care, you'll get compassion, and you'll get someone that is speaking to the greater audience as, again, a value added to hopefully do something that will impact you positively. So those are some of my whys.
Wow, that is quite the answer, and it even me myself, Ken. I remember in high school. It really started junior year of high school. I would wake up, and before class, in the shower, whatever, I'd always watch those motivational videos on YouTube. The start your morning with this video, and it'd be The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. It'd be someone speaking, some business owner being like, time is short, make sure to do this. And that propelled me to start thinking about, my why as well, because time is the best, the greatest resource we have, and it's not infinite. We our time span as we go on in life only decreases, and finding your why, like I want to be able to find why I was created. I also believe in God, why I was created, why I was made, why, like, what is my purpose here? And so that's been something that I've been growing in and trying to find myself.
Let me say something about this why. When I work with gentlemen whether it's in the programs of recovery or as a mentor. One of the things I always tell them is I don't answer why questions. I don't answer why questions. Because I'll get questions like this. Why did my wife leave me? Because she did. That's why. But I don't answer those questions. I don't answer why questions. Why questions have to come from inside, and they have to come from conversations with God. So I can't answer your motivation, your why. And let alone I can't answer the why for others. Okay? And I remember reading, that's not original. I read that somewhere where the person said, I don't answer why questions. I understood his answer, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing that. I'm not going to answer why questions because I don't know why. Okay?
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we can answer, oh my goodness, you can answer most questions if you take the time, the energy, the commitment to answer the question. But what happens is an answer to a question is like something that's hidden in a room, in a large house with many doors. And what happens is we go into the house, we go upstairs, and there's all these doors. And behind door number 4, behind door of when I was 8 years old, is the answer. And we don't want to go into the room because we have fear or trepidation to go into the room because the room is dark. The room is scary, and we won't go into the room. So one of the things that I do when I work with men as a coach, as a mentor, as a sponsor, is I go into the room with them. Come on, let's go in there. I'll ask you some questions that'll shine a little light in that corner or that corner or that corner of the room. But in the end, it's up to you to identify, see, and embrace that past truth that will answer that question. I've answered almost all the questions of my existence. I know all my whys. I know why I did certain things. I know why certain things happened to me. I know why I reacted in certain ways in certain situations. I've looked at all those. And some of those, it was painful to look at. I'm talking about emotionally painful to look at. But I went into those dark rooms, I turned on the light, or I shined the flashlight, and I sat down in that room and I dealt with that memory or that experience.
Ken, growing up, because right now you're in a position where you're mentoring young black men. Did you yourself, growing up, have a role model or someone you looked up to where you were like, wow, this person actually influenced my life to an extent?
Yeah, number one is my mom, period. That would be the number one person that has influenced me as to the person you see here sitting in the positive way. Because I had role models that were not positive, okay? And my father, so, that was not a positive role model or a person to emulate. I remember when I had committed this felony, I was on approximately 45th Street on the Pack Highway.
Is this in New York?
In Seattle, Washington.
Gotcha.
And I had been arrested for a felony. I called my dad up and I said, hey, Dad, guess what? I did this felony. I got arrested and I'm like you. And I just remember, and I'm not going to repeat it, but what he said was, again, you're less than, how dumb of you, ... But I just wanted him to like me, and I thought maybe that's how he would like me if I was like him.
Right.
Convicted felon, alcoholic, violent, whatever. And that was a lesson on, again, who you have as role models. You can have role models that are older. You can have role models that of your same age cohort. And one of the difficulties, and I always say this to all the guys I work with, you are who you hang out with. You are who you hang out with. And I was a predator in many ways on the streets because that's who I hung out with. And I needed for them to say that I was all right. First of all, that's a protective mechanism on the streets and in the penitentiary, that you want the individuals who are thugs, predators, criminals to like you, because if they don't like you, they don't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they could physically hurt you because they can't trust that you will not put them in a situation that will either be dangerous and or lead them back into jail or the penitentiary or prison. So again, it's real important who you are, who you hang out with. And so I had to change when I got out of the penitentiary the last time, and it was multiple times I went to the penitentiary. I had to change who I associated with. And that was real important for me to do that.
While you were in penitentiary, were there certain things that you saw or heard, or maybe people that you encountered that made you kind of have that shift in mindset where you were like, uh-oh, this is not where I should be?
Well, I can say obviously the first 2 times, I've been in penitentiary 3 times. I spent years behind bars. Okay, I'm a convicted felon. I've convicted for home burglary, convicted for drug possession, and convicted for drug sales. Those are my felonies, 3 different ones, 3 different times. And the first 2 times I went to prison and I was trying to learn in prison or picked up information on, for me, was how to be a better drug dealer. I was doomed never to be a good drug dealer. I don't know if there's such a term as a good drug dealer, but I never was going to be a good drug dealer because I'm a drug addict. So, I smoked up my own supply or my own bag. But what I did on the 3rd time is I went in with a different mindset. My why was different when I went into prison the 3rd time. And therefore I associated with different individuals and I carried myself in a different way because I realized if I was the same person going into the penitentiary as I was when I came out, I'd have the same results. And my results were to continue going back into the penitentiary or dying on the streets or being killed on the streets.
Wow. I want to shift to, because there's so many facets to your life and story, and you're so open to it. I want to shift to identity, and specifically identity as a black man. I remember right before we started, you had mentioned the story of having a gun pulled on you. Kind of take us through that story.
Sure. So we were talking about identity, and we were also talking about mentoring and how we have different experiences and how I will talk to different people differently. My experience as a black male is different from an experience of a 60-year-old Asian American woman, female. Different experience. And she never has to worry about driving while black, DWB. And so I was sharing with Hermias the experience that I had early on before I even got into the streets. So let's catch up. I'm at Dartmouth College. I'm an Ivy Leaguer. I am so innocent and so square when I went off to college. I mean, very innocent, very square. Okay, I had a half a beer in high school, and I'd smoked weed like twice. But weed was legal in Alaska at that time. It's legal now. So I go off innocent, and I mean innocent. Never been with a woman. I mean, I was innocent, 17-year-old, intellectual black male, and never spent any time in the big city. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska. Go off to New Hampshire, which is not the big city, and I go to visit during Christmas break my roommate, Bobby Braswell Jr. in Newark, New Jersey. He actually lived in Hillside, which is a suburb. His father was Bobby Braswell Sr., who was a lieutenant, old school, black cop I mean, he like got hired in the 50s and very, very well respected. This is 1981. Anyway, we go off to a club called Zanzibar. It's a disco. Go to Zanzibar, and we're coming back about 1:30 in the morning, and Bob is driving a Datsun 260 or 280Z, and I'm in the back, and it's only a two-seater, so I'm in like the trunk area, but it's open. And another gentleman named Mike Mitchell, we're all black Dartmouth students. We're all Ivy Leaguers. We're all quote unquote innocent, even though Bobby, growing up in Hillside, suburb of New Jersey, knew a whole lot more than Mike Mitchell and I. So anyway, we're driving and Bobby started like swerving because I'm bouncing around because I'm in like the trunk area of a 240Z. It's a hatchback.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, we see these sirens and the flashing lights of a cop. Now, I had never had any interactions with police other than maybe them coming to get my father for beating me. That's a whole nother story. So I'm just laughing because I'm being bounced around back there. And Bobby, very smart of him, continues driving for another, let's say, half a mile, which is not what you do with white cops, and pulls up in front of his house in Hillside. But we have approximately 6 Newark Police Department cars, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, club had closed, and outside of his house. And then remember, there was always one Hillside cop car. And the cops come up to the thing, and we roll down the window, and Bobby's saying, I'm from Dartmouth. I'm a Dartmouth student. My dad's Bobby Braswell Sr. And they're not even listening to him. And then I'm laughing, but they don't know I'm in the back because it's a two-seater. And then this cop turns around, and I'll never forget, he had a flashlight, and he had his pistol. And he has the flashlight like this, and the pistol pointed right at my head. And he said, "What the F is so funny?" Something to that effect. And I had never gone into fear that quickly because I had never had a gun pointed at me from about a foot away of my head with this cop. And again, what happened was Bobby Braswell Sr., the father, came out in his bathrobe and said very simply, "What the F is going on out here?" Because he sees all these cop cars. He's a cop. He's a lieutenant. He's been on the force for 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And they realize that they know him because this is Lieutenant Bobby Braswell Sr. And even though Bobby Braswell Jr. had told them, "My dad's Bobby Braswell," they didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And they had never been to Bobby Braswell Sr.'s house, so they didn't know. And the cops tore off because they realized they had a problem because he had been around, he's a cop that with a lot of respect. But we found out the next day there was a crew of black men who were robbing banks in a light yellow Toyota. We're in a white Datsun, but that's close enough. We're black. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And we could be the crew that's robbing banks in a whole completely different car, really 10 miles away from where the banks are being robbed, that were robbed during the day. So that's why they did what they did and why there were so many cop cars. So yeah, that's driving while black. They were black. They were driving. We got pulled over and the guns were pulled on us. And so what happens is, and I'm speaking probably to the choir, driving while black means very simply is when we're pulled over, driving while black, our hands are on the steering wheel. We don't reach into the glove compartment. Mm-hmm. We don't reach into the center console. We answer the questions with respect and kindness. "Yes, Mr. Officer, what can I do for you?" And I've been pulled over a few times, but I know how to do it now. I know you don't have to get the gun point at you one time from a foot away with the legal right to shoot you or illegal right to shoot you by a white cop. So that's my story.
Yeah.
Sticking to it.
Oh my gosh. I've had a situation where, well, it wasn't a gun pulled on me, but again, I've been pulled over for speeding a few times. And again, I still remember it. It was 2 summers ago. Some friends and I was doing 40. Immediately switches to a small town where the speed limit is a 20. I don't see it. I'm still doing 40 and a 20. Cop pulls me over, and my hands are locked on the steering wheel. And I don't even notice that it's locked on until the officer, after getting our IDs, is like, "Hey, you can relax."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that." And we left that scene, and my friends were like, "Wow, we just saw a prime example of that." So I've experienced like something like that. But okay, so once the cops left, how did you guys feel? Like what was that environment like after the car ride back home?
Fear. I don't know what others that are listening, what their experience with fear is. I've had what we call palpable fear. I've had fear. I've been in situations, especially on the streets and in the penitentiary, where there was such a clear and present danger of physical pain or death. And that there's a fear, and then also the fear of my father and some of the situations I was in with him. So when fear happens, there's a lot of adrenaline that is released, and you're amped because you're in fear. And so we talked about the situation. Also, there's a sense of feeling less than. Why is this happening to us? But there was a really interesting component of it. Or at least I did. I don't want to speak for Bobby or Mike. I thought I was special. I thought I was one of the special blacks because I'm not a thug. I didn't grow up in the hood. I'm not hard. So therefore, I thought white people would treat me differently because I'm not a threat to them, especially once they get to know me and once I have an opportunity to articulate and know my background. Hey, I'm Ivy League. I'm Dartmouth. I'm Harvard. I'm a businessman. Therefore, I'm not a threat to you. Well, I thought that. Remember, the first thing we said, I never forget this because I remember Bobby rolling. My name is Bobby Braswell. I go to Dartmouth. Like they care. They could care. You're black and you're a male. That's the fear we have as a white cop. Okay? And that hit me hard. I picked that lesson up right then. That they don't care. And really, a lot of society doesn't. Now, some society loves it that I'm an Ivy League educated, kind and gentle businessman. Mm-hmm. They love it because they can trust me that I won't go off.
Right.
And I won't go off because I'm kind and gentle. But don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Oh, I will represent. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing. You look at me and you say, he couldn't have done all these things. I did. There's nothing I'm going to talk about today that I did not do. You can go look up my record. It's public knowledge. It's public record. All my convictions. Right? I just told you about the felonies. I have a few, more than a few misdemeanors. Okay? I have assault. I have solicitation of prostitution. I have theft. I have trespassing. I have a bunch of things. I just told you about the felonies because those are the ones that sent me to prison. But there's a lot on my record. And I have hurt people. And again, I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just saying, I've been hurt physically. So I always tell it, and this is something that, again, as a black man, I always have to be careful for because, again, I believe that most white people are afraid of black men, period. That's just my belief. I could be wrong. I don't care, male or female. I believe that you fear us, physically fear us. That's my belief. It's been my experience. And it's up to me many times to I try to make sure you feel comfortable with me, because then hopefully in time you'll be comfortable with us. So be comfortable with me, and I will be this kind, gentle, understanding person. I've had things, man, I would love if we could talk about the power of the word, of words, and specific words. I want to take us from getting out of college to getting out of prison.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Go
let's
ahead.
do it. So what happened with me is I graduated from Dartmouth, and my graduation present, that's something supposedly happens when you graduate from college. A lot of people get a car. I went to my first treatment center. That was my graduation present. So I go to my first treatment center in 1984. I ended up doing 14 inpatient treatments for my drug addiction over the many years that were to follow. I was sober for 2 or 3 years. I relapsed, and when I first got out, I got this great job in the corporate world, working for 3M, working for Kodak, and did very, very, very well. And then in 1988, 89, I actually relapsed in 86, and by 88, 89, I'm homeless on the streets of Seattle. Peniel Mission, Bread of Life Mission, Downtown Emergency Shelter, Seattle Gospel Mission, the one with the Salvation Army, Adult Rehabilitation Center. Did all those soup kitchens. I did all those places to sleep. Okay, shelters we call them. And then I slept on the streets. I slept in abandoned houses, abandoned cars. Most of my existence over the next 10 years that I wasn't in jail, in the penitentiary, or in treatment, I spent in motels. I was in the motels. So I had this period, and then what I was is what we call a hustler. That's what I did. That was my main mode of making money, is I hustled. And what I meant is I found individuals that were looking for something, usually drugs or sex, and then I knew where to find both of them. And in fact, what I became is I became a prostitute also. I was a pimp, but then I became a male prostitute. So I turned tricks and did that for a bunch of years. And finally, it got to a point where my addiction and my whole existence of who I was as a person got to a point where suicide became a viable alternative. And I attempted it on one occasion with pills, and then there was another time I was going to jump off the Spokane Falls Bridge when I was in Spokane, and came pretty much that close. My self-esteem, my sense of value and worth, and this is something that, again, affects many black men, was so diminished that my will to live, and also my will to absorb the amount of pain, emotional and physical, that I was experiencing on the streets, I couldn't take it anymore. So, I made a decision to try treatment one more time. I got arrested for selling a $10 rock of crack cocaine. I was sentenced to 6 years in the penitentiary for that $10 rock. I was told that I was going to be given the habitual criminal statute on my next conviction, which would have been 25 to life for me. Ivy League, gentlemen. But I was a danger to society. I was. And I was a danger to myself. So that was the motivation when I went in on September 22nd, 2004, I was arrested. And now I'm coming up on 20 years clean and sober. But again, I just want to go back to being a black man in my experiences, because I'm in a environment that is quote unquote macho. And having been a prostitute on the streets, that was a secret. And very few people knew that. And so I kept it a secret, but that secret was killing me, because I knew that I was this person. I had done these things, and I would look at myself askance and or treat myself poorly because I did this, this, and this on the streets. And so finally, I took away the power of that secret, and I took away the power of that secret by sharing it with one person. Remember we talked about going into those rooms? I never wanted to go into those rooms when I was sober. I didn't want you to know I had done this. I didn't want you to know I used to pimp teenage girls, just like I found out later my father did, because I didn't know this. I had teenage white girls and black girls. I pimped them out, and they were young, and I pimped them out. And that's what I did. Again, nothing I'm proud of, but that was a secret, and I could not speak of that, and I wouldn't speak of that. And now today, I can share that because I'm not afraid of your reaction. I'm not afraid of you liking me. I'm not afraid of you affecting my ability to support my family. Yeah. And I'm comfortable within myself. And I'm hoping by sharing secrets or sharing these things that we don't talk about, it allows others to have some freedom to go into those dark rooms.
Right, right. And speaking on that note, I had a guest on. Shout out to you, Derek Watson, where we were talking about, what does the issue with the campus we're on today in Western that I have experienced and seen a lot with my friends and with other people is there is a self-esteem issue among our generation. There is some kind of people put on a mask in order to impress others. I've done it. I still do it at times, where we try to fit in at a certain house party. We try to fit in our freshman year with a certain friend group. Ken, how does someone, be comfortable enough to share who they really are, take off the mask and be like, hey, this is me, take it or leave it. This is my past. I can't change that. And kind of raise up that self-esteem.
A lot. I could speak on this for a while.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah. So, first of all, one of the things that you said was this is a self-esteem issue today on this campus. It's been a self-esteem issue for black men ever since we were brought over from Africa. How can you have self-esteem when you are trying to be the husband or the father of your children and you're sold? Or the white man can tell you to do anything because you're the slave. Because if not, there's repercussions to you or your loved ones. You can't have a self-estimation. First of all, let's define what self-esteem is. Self-esteem is two components, self-love and it's self-competency. One is being competent to life and the vicissitudes or the ups and downs of life itself. And the other is, am I lovable? Am I lovable? And so when we have a self-esteem issue and it's pertinent and I'm really speaking to the black men, where we can't get our self-esteem from inside, so we have a thing called pseudo self-esteem, where we define our self-esteem by how others look at us. Okay? So if my boys think I'm down because I do a drive-by or I get in a fight at the fraternity, or if I got 3 girls and I'm stringing along and they think that's cool, then my self-esteem, because I must be competent or I must be worthy because they think I am. Remember, you are who you hang out with.
Right.
Okay, so if you want to, there's a lot of things I can give you as suggestions on how to create and increase your self-esteem. The number one thing for self-esteem is you have to be grounded in truth. You have to identify what is truth. What's real? What is real? And to do that, a lot of times, again, you got to go back into your past and understand what is real and why are you looking at it this way, but it's not truth. It's not truth. And then the other thing is you got to understand, what is your why? Why do I need validation from outside sources? And I knew, and it took me a few years to understand this. But my validation is I didn't want to die alone. I did not want to die alone. I'd grown up in foster homes. I knew I wasn't wanted. I knew I had no worth. I was told that as a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. And then I had to pick up the secret of being adopted. Because people would come up to my mom and I, oh, he looks just like you. And we would smile and nod our heads because they thought biologically this was my mother. That was a lie. It wasn't the truth. And so you struggle with living all these untruths, and we wonder why we have a problem with self-esteem, self-estimation of worth and love. Okay? And again, we'd have to do a whole another podcast on just self-esteem.
This could be many hours,
because it's one of the most important. It is one of the main things that I teach a workshop on this. I've been working with young men on this. But the key thing is this. I worked on my self-esteem. I have high self-esteem. I am competent and I love me. I love me. I'm a good dude. We used to have a term on the street, you good people. That's what we would say, you good people. That was like the highest compliment we give. Man, you good people. Okay? I'm good people. I know that. You know that, Ermias. And you don't really know me, but you know that just from the experience you've had over the last month with me. But this is who I am. Who you see today, who you saw when we had lunch, who you saw at Brothers to Brothers, that's real. I don't fake the funk. I don't need to. I don't need it. That's the other thing. If you want high self-esteem, don't desire anything from others. Now, you may have a partner, and I'm big on partners, male, female, whatever it may be, your partner, but don't seek validation from external sources. Yeah. It's a relationship with self, right. And it's a relationship with God. And so I always ask people this. There's 3 conversations that you can have. That's it. There's conversations with God if you so believe. We can call it prayer, meditation. Great. There's conversations with you, Ermias. That's external. And then there's a conversation that's internal, we call self-talk. And one of the things I ask people, what is the most important to you?
What is the most important what?
Of the talks, of the conversations that you have going on at all times. And if it's external, you might want to look at that. So the levels are really this. External has the least credence, or really the least truth, because it's their interpretation of you. Then there's self-talk. And then for those individuals that get to that point, the highest level of conversations and or motivations are based on God or whatever the spiritual entity that modifies behavior. Gotcha. That's my definition of God.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still, a lot of times what I tell people is 98% of the time it's self-talk. Yeah. Because I don't need to talk to God or pray to God, but maybe 1%, 0.5%. My life is beautiful. I got a beautiful life. And I know how to navigate. Remember, self-esteem, competency to life. I'm very competent to life. And I used to always say, the other thing is, I don't F with people. I don't mess with folks. I don't have the time, energy, or want to mess with folks.
Yeah.
I could go on. One of the greatest lessons you learn, and I hate to say I had to learn it, but in the penitentiary. You learn some great lessons in the penitentiary on interactions between 2 human beings. Because if you don't learn the lessons, it could be very painful for you. Okay? And one of the things that I learned is to respect another man's time and respect where that man is at and give him his space. I don't try to change people. Even when I mentor, I always say, this is suggested. This is what I suggest.
Yeah.
Or let's take a look at from this point.
Yeah.
Or have you ever thought about it like this? But everything, whether it's in the rooms of recovery or I'm working with a mentee or I'm coaching, it's a suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Take it or leave it. That's beautiful.
What you got?
Ken, I want to transition to business. I know you're your mentor and you've done conferences, you've done presentations. I attended one of the Zoom meetings you had for how to go about it when you're offered the position to speak at something.
Right.
Kind of tell us a little bit about what businesses you have specifically, any shout outs of that, and kind of what made you get into business.
So this is great. So I get out of the penitentiary in 2007 with no skills, no legal skills, and I could not find a job. I'm a 3-time convicted felon black man, and only thing I could do was find a part-time job in a warehouse. But this was a key component of my thinking. I came out of the prison with a debt of approximately $2,800. I took every dollar I could afford and put it toward that debt. There was no zoom zooms and wham whams. There was no bling. There was no new clothes. I made a decision that I owe someone, and I did, and I'm going to pay this debt. That's a mindset, okay? And then as time went along, doors were revealed to me to open, to maybe walk in for different types of work. And I had a position as a development director, which is a fundraiser, for something I was familiar with, which was a soup kitchen called Beans Cafe up in Anchorage, Alaska. So I went in there, and they said, it is, this is great, they said, it's a fundraiser. And I'm like, oh, sales. Because I'm raising funds.
Right.
And I've told people, I've been in sales my whole life, legal and illegal. But I've always been in sales. On the streets, I was in sales. When I got out of college, I was in sales, in the corporate sales. So I know how to sell. And I fell in love with fundraising and began in fundraising. Did a great job. I was very good at it. And then April 1st, 2014, I started my company, Denali FSP LLC. And we are a fundraising and grant writing and grant administration company, 4 employees, very successful, very well respected in my community of my vocation, which is in the grant and fundraising world. So that's what I do. I'm the president. I'm the founder. We're coming up on 10 years. And again, this is something, there are not a lot of black male business owners, at least in a lot of the communities I've been in. Anchorage, Alaska, Bellingham, Washington, there aren't. And I would love to see more. And so when I coach and mentor, a lot of times they're business owners, they're young black men who are either in my field or business owners. And I'm always trying to encourage them, bring in courage to grow your platform or grow whatever you're doing that you've chosen as your vocation.
Right. To someone who is either starting out a business, wants to start a business right now, from your experience, because you are a successful business owner, what advice would you give to that person?
You're starting a business?
Yeah, for someone that wants to start a business.
Well, if you want to, okay, so great question. I have great advice. Number one, a business is a financial entity. So you got to understand finances, period. I have seen great businesses, great nonprofits. A nonprofit is a business. It's a corporation. You have to incorporate a nonprofit in the state that you belong. We just don't pay taxes. So you have for-profit and not-for-profit. So if you're starting either one, you have to get the finances down correctly and understand finances. Understand profit and loss, because the object is to have a profit in a for-profit organization or a surplus in a nonprofit organization, because that keeps the lights on, pays the salaries. Mm-hmm. Number two thing, have something that you're passionate about. So I have a company. I love fundraising. I love nonprofits. So I wake up, I'm excited to go to work. And I work hard. And I'm more of a business owner now than I do fundraising. I don't do fundraising. I do consulting. Our company does consulting and writes grants and things like that. I don't do a lot of the technical work. So that's number two, is find something you love. Number one, no finances. Number two, find something you love. And number three, get a mentor or a coach. Get a mentor or a coach. Mm-hmm. And there's so many more. Learn marketing. You got to learn marketing. Because a lot of people, they'll start a business and they'll have their first few customers, but it's not sustainable because they don't know how to market. They don't know how to allow the outside community understand what value that company does in either a product or a service, what we call goods and services. Right. So those are just some. I can talk on this a while. Yeah. And I'll say one other thing on this. Let's bring it back to being a Black business owner. Your chances are less than average because many times we don't know finances and we didn't grow up learning about finances. And I've talked to many about household finances, let alone business finances. Mm-hmm. And then number two, we don't have the mentor or coach. A lot of times we'll go into something we're passionate about, food, clothing, great, no problem. We got the passion part, but we don't have the fiscal or financial part, and we don't have the knowledge part. Or you got to understand what a mentor coach, a lot of what we do is we just support you emotionally on the tough days or the hiccups. Yeah. And we celebrate the successes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And shout out to, again, Derek Watson, who I had on, Phoenix Coffee, Zazen Salon and Spa, Max Hair Studios in the mall. And then we got Bernard from Busy Bees Barbershop.
Yep, I mean, we sure do. Shout out to
Bernard.
Love them all.
Yeah, shout out to Bernard. Man. Kim, man, to wrap this thing up.
Oh, do we have to? I'm just kidding.
Something like that. We talked about business advice specifically. This is kind of a two-parter. What advice would you give to the younger generation of Black and men and women? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, what advice would you give to just anyone in general, to the younger generation, for anyone in general?
Well, let's start with general, then we'll narrow it down. Yeah. One of the things I always say is number one, find and embrace truth. I cannot emphasize that enough. Find and embrace truth. And that means you're going to have to do some work. You may have to do some research. Okay. Number two, be curious. Be curious. I've been in a lot of situations where I'm on like the interviewing for jobs and stuff, and I'm always looking. I can't teach curiosity. I can't teach curious. I can teach technical all day long. Skills. I can teach skills. I can't teach curiosity. Okay? Define your strengths and emphasize and work on the strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses, not nearly as much as emphasize your strengths, because people will pay you for your strengths. Keep your weaknesses so they don't impede you, but emphasize strengths. Okay? and find out what those are. And that's, again, that's a part about finding what are your truth. What is your truth? What am I good at? What do I bring to the table? What is my value added? Yeah, I love this. Don't do drugs. If you want to smoke some weed and you're cool with that, I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm not going to tell you not to smoke weed. Okay? But keep away. Don't even try hard drugs. Don't even try. There's a term, they're addictive. And being an addict doesn't care that you went to the Ivy Leagues, doesn't care that you grew up in a middle class or upper middle class home, doesn't care that you are, a tall, dark, and handsome. Doesn't care. It's a drug. And the drug takes over and will run your life. Another suggestion for everyone. You are who you hang out with. But even as important, or even probably even more important, is who you sleep with. It's who you sleep with. I'm not going to talk about sex. I'm talking about who you sleep with. And that will define you. Okay? We have a thing, if you're in recovery and you are sleeping with someone who is an addict, you're doomed. You're doomed. It's just a matter of time, period. Okay? So what I'm talking about is making good choices on your partners. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then the other one, and this is for everyone, if you have a spiritual, embrace it, believe it, embrace it, and allow it to modify your behavior. Because at least every religion I've ever been exposed to, I've been exposed to a lot of them, it is about really the walk through life. We can talk about afterlife, but the walk through life and how do you modify desire. I don't care if it's Buddhist, I don't care if it's Christian, I don't care if it's Jewish. It's how do you modify desire? And so it's an external entity that modifies behavior. That's what I call the spiritual. Okay? And then the other is take time to work on self-esteem. Take time to be kind and to forgive yourself, let alone learn and embrace forgiving others. I've forgiven everyone. I harbor no ill. My father, we didn't go into, shot my mom 6 times. I have no ill will. He's passed away, but before he even died, the last 10 years, I used to sit down and talk with him. This is the man who shot the person I loved the most in my life at that time. And my mother forgave him too. She passed away. She still had 2 bullets in her when she passed away. He hit her 5 times. That's forgiveness. Because I can't harbor that pain. I can't harbor that ill will. And the other thing is, if you don't learn to forgive, how can you even ask for forgiveness from others? How can you even ask or expect it? And you haven't given it. And so I have no resentment toward anyone. That's my truth. And it's true. And I've had some horrible things happen to me. Horrible. So that's just a few. Now, I'm going to define it more as a black male. Don't use being a black male as an excuse for bad behavior. Let me say that again. Do not use being a black male in today's society as an excuse for bad behavior or to hurt others because you're in pain. I'm big on this. Okay? Find a mentor. Find another man who you respect their walk and their actions and allow them to mentor and support you in your walk through life. Another is to help others. When you get to a position that you can, reach out and help that next generation and or others as black men. Be proud and honor your black heritage. I'm so glad I'm black. I'm so glad I'm a black man. I really am. Mm-hmm. I really am. We cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
and so, man, it's so many things that I could say, anyway, we'll just go with those for now. And any other questions or?
That is it. If there's any last minute shout outs, anything you want to say before we wrap up?
I always start with a thank you. Anytime I speak 20, 30 times a year. And I always want to first thank when I start, and I want to thank when I end. I want to thank Hermes. I want to thank the gentleman in the booth for allowing me the opportunity to share. And I hope that the individuals who are listening, I want to thank you for listening. I want you to thank you for taking time, what we call capacity, out of your life to listen to just a child of God, a black man, share his experience, his truth. I want to thank you for that. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Ken Miller, so much. I really mean it. Guys, I'm out of lots of words. For those of you guys who are about to enter spring break, who are students right now, or are currently in spring break whenever you hear this, take time to find your truth. Take time to forgive yourself, to forgive others, to really look within, to heal, hopefully any kind of trauma, anything you're dealing with right now. Guys, I'm dealing with stuff. Everyone is going through something. But I hope that this podcast was able to move you in any way, even if it's a millimeter in the positive direction. Because it definitely did to me. So, guys, this has been special. Thank you again so much, Ken Miller. And we will catch y'all on more episodes as Season 4 rolls on. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Excellent. Peace out.